For today's video, I want to talk about a potential Brandon Aiyuk trade, as I've seen a lot of chatter out there about the Broncos maybe being a potential destination for Aiyuk. So I thought we could dedicate the next 10 or so minutes to the possibility of Aiyuk getting traded, kind of run through the pros, the cons, the facts, all that good stuff. Now, first, I do want to get the pulse of everyone watching because I was a little surprised to see kind of an overwhelming amount of people say they're not interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk. So, are you guys interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no to keep it nice and simple down below in the comment section. Now, I came across this article from the 33rd team, which listed 5 Aiyuk destinations, and the Broncos were included, along with the Pittsburgh Steelers, New England Patriots, Commanders, and Jets. But then I came across another article that had the Broncos kind of being tied or a potential destination for Brandon Aiyuk. This one coming from, I think it was SI, 3 Brandon Aiyuk trade packages the 49ers couldn't refuse from the Broncos. So let's talk about the possibility of trading for Brandon Aiyuk by opening up by saying it seems unlikely. I don't want to say never. This is the NFL. Like, no one saw Tyreek Hill getting traded, and then a couple hours later, he's a Miami Dolphin, right? No one really saw Devontae Adams going to the Raiders. Kind of out of the blue-ish, he's a Raider. So this stuff does happen from time to time, but I don't think the Broncos are the most likely destination for an Aiyuk trade. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of trading for Brandon Aiyuk. He comes off one of the best seasons of his NFL career, one of the best seasons altogether from a wideout last year. 1,342 yards off of 75 grabs. Guys, those are like college football numbers. Averaging 18 yards a reception. That's almost like what Marvin Mims did his last year at Oklahoma. 7 touchdowns. And keep in mind, he put together 1,342 yards in an offense that ranked 32nd in pass attempts. I think the bad Colin Cowherd analogy would be like Brandon Aiyuk is an ultimate carnivore in a family of vegetarians. Scrap that, vegans. Like, it's just not an offense designed for a wide receiver to get that much production. And that just speaks to how good of a receiver Aiyuk is. Now, the obvious elephant in the room is, what about Courtland Sutton, right? We've got Courtland Sutton. I mean, I'll let the numbers speak for themselves. Look at the last 2 seasons combined between these two guys. Brandon Aiyuk got 20 more targets over that 2-year stretch, resulting in 20 more receptions and a casual 700 more yards and 3 more touchdowns. So yeah, Brandon Aiyuk, it's safe to say, has been a much more productive receiver than Courtland Sutton the last 2 years. Now, I do think some extra context beyond stats is important. Courtland Sutton, older than Aiyuk by 3 years. He's under contract for 2 more seasons, whereas Aiyuk is under contract for just 2024, his fully guaranteed 5th-year option. Then he's a free agent in 2025, whereas Sutton, if a team were to trade for him, you can kind of get a rough idea as to what the cap hit would look like, north of $17 million. So not a huge cap hit, but also definitely not a small one either. But I think the big question that people are struggling with answering is Brandon Aiyuk worth about $30 million? Like, I think it's worth the pick to give up. You could keep a first-round pick and try and draft a receiver as good as Brandon Aiyuk, or you could trade a first-round pick for a guy you know is as good as Brandon Aiyuk. Like, the NFL draft is an absolute crapshoot. It is, right? It's a lottery. And it's got better odds than the Mega Ball, but it's still a lottery of sorts. And when you know a proven commodity like Brandon Aiyuk can be attained for a first-round pick, where you could use that pick on a guy that you hope is as good as Brandon Aiyuk, to me it's kind of a no-brainer. Oh, yeah, use the first-round pick on a guy that you're trying to draft that could hopefully be that good. But the other part of the equation is you want to pay Brandon Aiyuk too. Look at the top 10 highest-paid wide receivers in football. Like, Justin Jefferson just became the highest non-quarterback in NFL history, making $35 million a season. I don't think Brandon Aiyuk is going to get more than Jefferson, nor do I believe he should get more than Justin Jefferson. But my guess is he probably wants his first number to be a 3. And he probably wants to be in that Amon-Ra, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown era. And we're noticing a trend of players just one-upping one another, as that's kind of always been the pattern for NFL contracts. But as great of a player Aiyuk was last year and the season before that, I do have some concerns about trading for him and giving him that contract through the lens of the Denver Broncos. If it were to happen, I wouldn't be having a pity party. Like, at the end of the day, the Broncos are getting an all-pro wide receiver on a team that ranked 32nd in pass attempts last year. They're getting a great football player. It's hard not to be excited about that. But when you're giving up that much draft capital and giving out that big of a contract, you need to do your homework. Like, you just can't approach that lightly and go, well, he got 1,300 yards last year. I've seen all I need to see. No. My first concern is when you're giving out that big of a contract, you got to like and know the player that you're giving out that contract to. And I'm not quite sold on Brandon Aiyuk being someone that other GMs would be confident in giving a huge contract to, because the way he went about this offseason, I felt like was a little immature and childish at times. Posting on TikTok a FaceTime or a video with Jaden Daniels saying they don't want me, like, it was a little high school-y at times. It really wasn't professional. And so I've got a little bit of a concern there, but maybe that's just because of the behind-the-scenes antics that have gone on with the San Francisco 49ers. You know, I'm not in the room, and maybe there's more to the story we don't know, but surface level, the media leaks that Aiyuk has put out there to try and gain some leverage from the fans and with the media to get a bigger contract, it hasn't come across as the most adult way to conduct business. The second issue I have is what may be a precursor to the media leaks and the kind of immature-ish behavior at times this offseason, the Shanahan doghouse. If you notice that Brandon Aiyuk's first two seasons were not 1,000-plus yard seasons. And that's because Brandon Aiyuk wasn't on the field all that much. Out of the gates, he found himself in his head coach's doghouse. Now, eventually, he worked his way out of it. I'm not quite sure what it was that really landed him in the doghouse, but for an extremely talented wide receiver with a Jimmy Garoppolo-led offense to be on the bench, surely there must be something you're doing very, very wrong for the coach to take you off the field. It's not like Brandon Aiyuk was in an offense that was loaded at wide receiver talent and they didn't even really need him, and they had a perennial Pro Bowl quarterback. No. We know who won the Jimmy Garoppolo 49ers divorce. Like, clearly the 49ers didn't need Garoppolo as much as Garoppolo needed them. So for Shanahan to take Aiyuk off the field with all the problems they had with Garoppolo and the rest of the receivers after Deebo Samuel, I think there are some legitimate concerns about the character and makeup of a player like this, and you should look into those concerns before giving him $32, $33 million a season. Now, having said all that, there are some really good pros to Brandon Aiyuk's game. I mean, we're going to get in the nitty-gritty here of football stats, but I want to share with you guys yards per target. So think about this as an efficiency metric, right? Guys that don't get targeted very much, but when they do, they make the most of their opportunity and get a boatload of yards. In the last 2 years, Brandon Aiyuk ranks third in yards per target. He's getting a lot of yards without getting a lot of targets. He is an efficient player, coming in at 10.8 yards per target. So if you want Aiyuk or you don't want Aiyuk, this is what I think a trade would look like. Broncos get Brandon Aiyuk for Courtland Sutton, so the 49ers can feel like they're still getting a competitive, top-notch wide receiver and stay in a competitive mode as they were, 8 minutes away from winning a Super Bowl last year. A second-round pick and a third-round pick. I don't think you have to give up a first if you give up Courtland Sutton. I think you could get by with 2 day 3 draft picks and Courtland Sutton. I also feel like the 49ers, while they have been very public through Adam Schefter, that they are not interested in trading Brandon Aiyuk away. As we get closer to training camp, leverage can sometimes start to get away as a player is openly wanting out. Once the cat's out of the bag, it might be a bit tough to get a great offer for that player. So with all that being said, I think the most important question that we need to answer and ask ourselves before we get on out of here today is, does Sean Payton feel like they can win playoff games right now? If the answer is yes, then go get Brandon Aiyuk. Like, sorry for all the Courtland Sutton lovers out there, and believe me, I like him as a receiver too, but are we going to kid ourselves that Courtland Sutton is better than Brandon Aiyuk right now? No, come on. You guys saw the numbers the last 2 years. So if Sean Payton feels like, yeah, we've got a roster right now that's better than just maybe getting the 7 seed in the playoffs, but can actually make the playoffs, then Brandon Aiyuk is going to help you win playoff games. We saw that for the 49ers this past season. He was a huge catalyst in that second half comeback against the Detroit Lions. Now, if the answer is no, Sean Payton doesn't feel like in 2024 that this is a playoff winning team, then it may not be good timing for Denver to give up a bunch of draft picks where they can get young players and cheap players and give out a monster contract. So I think this trade idea really comes down to how competitive you think the Broncos are going to be this upcoming season. If you think they are a playoff winning team, then yeah, I would pursue Brandon Aiyuk. If you don't think they're a playoff winning team, I wouldn't. Now, this might not be what you want to hear, but the honest truth for myself is I don't think the Broncos in year one with Bo Nix are a playoff winning team. They could very well win 9, maybe 10 games, get a wild card spot, and put together a really strong season to grow from. But I don't think they're at a spot where Brandon Aiyuk's going to be the difference maker in them sneaking into the playoffs versus going on a run in the playoffs. All right, before I let you guys get on with the rest of your day, some summer hot takes for today's episode. We're in the fajitas plate hot take range for today, and we're talking wide receivers. So it only felt right to talk about maybe another wide receiver trade in the AFC West, except we're talking about our friends over in Las Vegas. My hot take for today's show is Davante Adams will be traded by the Raiders at the NFL trade deadline. I don't think he'll get traded before the NFL trade deadline. The Raiders have been very public that they are not interested in trading Davante Adams away. I don't think Davante Adams wants to get traded away, but I think when the trade deadline gets here and the Raiders are looking at a 1, 2, maybe 3 win standing so far, they're going to be hard-pressed to say no to a really good offer for Davante. So my fajita plate hot take today is we're going to see Adams get traded at the NFL deadline this season.